My name is Dan Morris. I'm a supervising attorney in the Wilmer office for Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid. I've been there for 2 years now, and before that I worked for Anishinaabe Legal Services on the Leech Lake Reservation. I did that for 2 years. There's a quite large landlord out in Wilmer where our office is located, and they had instituted a certain bedbug policy, extermination policy for bedbugs, where regardless of the source or cause of the infestation, the tenant was responsible for all extermination costs. And these can run anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500. And about 15 tenants in that housing complex were affected by the bedbug policy, were assessed those charges and couldn't afford them because they're low income, and started receiving lease violations and lease terminations and were facing eviction. And a large number of those came to our office for assistance with clearing that up. And our office was able to represent them, investigate the case, and work with the landlords to have that bedbug policy rescinded, credits made to the client's accounts, and those lease terminations vacated. And so the tenants were able to stay in their apartments, and in a tight housing market like Wilmer, that meant a lot, the continuity with their children and staying where they were. Our office covers 10 counties, and it's a very large service area. It goes all the way from Big Stone County to Meeker County, Lyon County in the south, and Swift County in the north. And so sometimes it can take up to 2 hours to go between court hearings, to meet with clients, things like that. And so transportation is really important to have reliable transportation. Many of our clients don't have transportation themselves, and so we need to often meet clients at the library or the courthouse to get papers signed and things like that. And it was just this last fall, getting close to winter, and the car I was driving had a lot of miles on it, but it had a good gas mileage. And I was on my way to a court hearing a couple hours away, and the car broke down. And so I had to get it towed to a mechanic and have somebody from my office cover my court hearings. I remember waiting with my wife for the next LRAP check to come and the support that they provide, and we went and put a down payment on a car, and now we have a reliable vehicle, and I'm able to make those court hearings. Enables me to have trust in my clients and the court, and able to help perform my job competently. I'm the supervising attorney out there, and so I'm responsible for hiring, and in order to get great staff that can serve clients competently, they have to be able to honestly afford to work there. And it's programs like the Loan Repayment Assistance Program that makes us able as a program to hire great staff to help serve those low-income clients. Being able to serve low-income clients is very rewarding, but it's really built on the community. It's built on not just us that are providing those direct services, but it's built on people that support us, in the legislature, the community, the bar at large. And without that support from people working at the Loan Repayment Assistance Program, the people that support it, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And so thank you for all the support.
My name is Sarah Karki. I work at Immigrant Law Center of Minnesota, and I've been there for 2.5 years. I've worked in our rural offices, first in Worthington, Minnesota, and now in Austin, Minnesota. I had worked with one family that had been a refugee. So first they had to escape their country because of violence and suffered because of that. Some were injured from landmines. And then they lived in the refugee camp for 20 years before they were settled in the United States. And then eventually they made their way to one of our offices to get a consult for citizenship, and our office was able to help them. And after they went through the whole process, they rushed as soon as they could to get their passports, because as a refugee, you don't have the right to free travel. So this was the first time in almost 30 years that they had been able to just travel where they wanted to go. So they rushed and got the passports and made a trip back to the country they were born in. And the dad was able to be reunited with his own mother, who he hadn't seen in 27 years. So it was really a remarkable story for their family to be able to be reunited decades later. And then it was kind of bittersweet because it had been so long. And then after they left, his mother passed away. So I was really lucky that he was able to go there in that moment and reunite with his family. Yeah, especially in the Worthington office, which is quite far from the Twin Cities, clients would have to drive 3.5 hours to have access to an attorney in Minnesota. So instead of a client with very limited resources who's trying to fight a case in court, having to drive every few weeks to the cities, or only getting help through telephone calls to try to sort everything out and mail paperwork. Having them be able to just walk up to the office when they have questions or have appointments really makes a difference, and it helps them to save their resources. Instead of having to drive to the cities, they are able to focus on securing their basic needs instead of extra to help to try to see an attorney.
My name is Lars Markson, and I'm a staff attorney with Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid. I spent 4 years as a general practitioner out in our Wilmer office, and now for the last 9 months I've been working in Minneapolis, specializing in public benefits. Spending 4 years out in the Wilmer office, covering the 10 different counties, I was able to develop a general background with a lot of things, which meant that when I was working with our clients, I was able to take a more holistic approach. And so sometimes I would have the same client for a family law issue. They would come back to me. They already knew me. I'd established rapport with them. I knew their story. So when they came back with a consumer law issue, I already knew everything about them. I knew what was going on, and they understood that I knew everything about them. And so with those 4 years of experience, I was able to build up sort of that general fund of knowledge of being able to help them in these different areas. Now having transferred out to our Minneapolis office, I was able to take that general experience and able to sort of focus it into a more specialized practice with the public benefits unit. But at the same time, I'm also, with that background, I'm able to sort of help pick out different issues that might not get caught the first time around during the intake. And then I can say, okay, well, you've got this separate issue, and so I'm gonna get you in touch with a different unit in our office that can help you with that issue. Because I already have a general idea of where it's gonna go, but they have that specialization to get you where you need to go. And so being able to have all those years of experience has really helped out with that. LRAP, by providing a portion of the monthly amounts that I have to pay towards my student loans, helps me to be able to work just at legal aid without having to take second employment somewhere else. But even with that, it's still not enough to be able to keep up with paying off my student loans. Even at this point, I'm still not even able to keep up with monthly interest payments. So by having that light at the end of the tunnel of, after 10 years, the public service loan forgiveness, I'm able to keep my focus and my energy on being able to help out my clients without having to put in my extra worries about how am I going to make these ends meet, how am I going to deal with this ever-increasing debt that otherwise I would be stuck with for the rest of my life. Without public service loan forgiveness, I wouldn't be able to pay off those debts and still work at legal aid. Without LRAP, I wouldn't be able to still make those monthly payments all the time without having to get a second employment. And so I'm incredibly grateful for that, for being able to allow me to put my focus on my clients without having to focus on also figuring out my own financial ends.
Yeah, I'm Sarah Davis. I work at the Legal Rights Center in Minneapolis, and I've been there for about 4.5 years. We help a lot of clients. You know, it's sometimes hard to choose just one. At the moment, I'm thinking about a young woman I worked with a couple years ago who was really struggling. She had a lot of mental health issues. A lot of our clients have mental health struggles, and she had a lot of fear just even about coming to court. It wasn't a really major charge in the realm of court, but she for her it was a really big deal, and she felt really nervous, and I think her anxiety really made it scary for her to come, and she had this fear that she was going to get taken away just by coming to court, that she would be taken away from her family. And you know, I think about the time that I spent with her just kind of talking through what is this going to look like when we go to court, and really kind of even just mapping out what does the courtroom look like, where are we going to be sitting, you know, your parents are going to be sitting right next to you, I'm going to be sitting right next to you, you know, this is what the judge is going to say and this is what's going to happen. And I think all of that really helped. Also to take the time to get to know her as a person. So she, you know, she was a young woman who was really bright, has a lot of potential. She's going to do really great things in life. And I think taking the time for her to know that, you know, this case does not need to define her for the rest of her life, I think helped her understand, you know, this isn't going to be, you know, this incredibly scary experience. I'm not going to be taken away from my family. And at the end of the case, it actually worked out. The timing was really interesting. One of the reasons she had gotten herself into trouble is she didn't have any money, and she had, one of her prized possessions was her guitar, and so she had sold her guitar to try and pay back her parents, and at the end of the case, the timing worked out really well. My in-laws happened to be selling their long-held family music store, and they had an extra guitar that I was able to give to her, and I think it just really made a difference for her to be able to say, out of this really scary process came, something positive. Fundamentally, I don't think people understand how hard it is to stay in this line of work. The pay is what it is. I mean, you don't go into public service law because you're expecting to make a lot of money. I didn't expect to make a lot of money, but it is really hard to have people come out of law school with major debt and commit themselves to working in public interest and not just starting there, but staying there. And I think we need people to stay, right? Because of the skill set and the knowledge base and all the experience and those relationships that you build. I mean, that's what is going to give you the best possible representation for clients. And in order to do that, we need people to stay. And I think it's really, it's a commitment, and it's also a financial commitment. You're committing yourself to say, I'm not going to make a lot of money, and I'm okay with that, but I still have to pay my loans. I still need to be able to go to the store, once a year maybe and buy a new suit, or I need to pay for my cell phone bill because my work doesn't pay for my cell phone. I have a landline at my office, and that's what our office can afford to pay for. But I'm in court a lot. Like, I need to be able to call my clients if they're not there. I need to have a cell phone. And I think, all of those things are easily taken for granted, when you think about just all of the expenses of being in this line of work. In that way, LRAP is just, critical. I think it's so important. I'm really fortunate. I have received LRAP for several years, and I'm getting close to that point where hopefully I'll be able to get the remainder of my loans forgiven through the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. And I really, truly cannot wait for the day that happens, because then I'm going to be donating to LRAP. I mean, I can't think of a more critical program to support effective advocacy for folks whose circumstances would not otherwise allow them to have an attorney.